Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Sunday, October 26th, 2025, and trade negotiations between Canada and the United States are still rocky. And we actually got 10% increase in tariffs because Trump found out that Canada didn't actually stop running the ad. We're going to stop the ad Monday. I've got video of him finding out about that, and he's not happy. And it's funny, like, to watch the video, but not funny about the fallout in Canada. It's very, very detrimental. And could this be the economic force Mr. Trump was talking about? 10% increase to tariffs. Wab Kinew wants to have his own commercial, and he enthusiastically encourages Doug Ford to continue, which is unbelievable. We've got an Ireland presidential election result, and it's exactly what I said was going to happen, unfortunately. We've got the Alberta rally. We've got China, and everybody and their dog is pretty well saying that pivoting to having a relationship, trade relationship, close relationship with China instead of the United States is the stupidest damn thing we've all ever heard. And so a lot of people pushing back on Carney's big plan that he's unveiled for trade and diversifying trade. Should we diversify trade? Sure. Should we diversify trade to replace trade with the United States? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's a crazy idea and a dumb idea. And if trade with the United States is on the fritz, you should probably be fixing that than having a tour around Asia right now. So people are upset about all of that. And I can't blame them. So we're going to start there. I've also got news on the Alberta rally that happened yesterday. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Ross McLean is, well, I want to talk about Donald Trump. And the original title of today's show was going to be War and Peace. But I thought I want to talk about the trade because the trade is really important. But also things going on around the world are also pretty important. And we get told regularly that Donald Trump is a monster. He's a terrible person. He's rude. He's crass. He's, all sorts of terrible things. And by my count, he's solved 6 wars and been trying to solve the Ukraine war for a while. And now there's added signatures, et cetera, et cetera. And also, Bannon is talking about how Trump's gonna be it in 2028, and I don't think he's wrong. And I've been talking about that for a little while too. And so I want to start here because I think that this is impactful for the world. So, as I said, lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, peace and the peace president, Donald Trump. Stephen Miller says the peace president. Ross says maybe Carney and start with getting Quebec and Alberta to make peace with Ottawa. The great negotiator and crisis manager should be able to do that, right? So Carney was sold to us as a guy who could make a deal with Trump. Trump seems to be able to make deals with all sorts of people who are at war with each other, but can't make a deal with Canada. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? Isn't that a strange thing to have happen, right? Here is Gunther Eagleman, and this guy was responding to Stephen calling Donald Trump the peace president. That's really what I wanted to highlight there. Here's Trump talking about the 8 wars he's managed to finish in his presidential term, and he says that's pretty good. And he says if I can spend some time saving millions of lives, that's a pretty good use of my time. I think it's a pretty good use of my time, he says. Okay, cool. Here we go.
This is one of 8 wars that my administration has ended in just 8 months. We're averaging 1 a month. There is only 1 left. Although I heard that Pakistan and Afghanistan have started up, but I'll get that solved very quickly. I know them both, and the Pakistan, the Field Marshal and the Prime Minister are great people, and I have no doubt we're going to get that done quickly. That one started up a few days ago. And I just feel it's something I can do. I do it nicely. I don't need to do it, I guess, but if I can take time and save millions of lives, that's really a great thing. I can't think of anything better to do. But the 8 wars that my administration has ended in just 8 months, there's never been anything like that. Never. There never will be either. This is one of...
I mean, confidence is not his issue. Here is Tony, and he says Cambodia nominates President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. He saved lives, and this is the wish of the Cambodian people, says the Prime Minister during today's peace summit. The Cambodian-Thailand peace deal marks yet another global movement recognizing Trump's role in delivering peace, not war. Even world leaders are taking notice. Thoughts? So, I mean, that's something, right? Like, that's not nothing, right? They weren't doing that for Biden. They weren't doing that for Obama. Obama dropped so many bombs on the Middle East. It's no wonder there's animosity to the United States now.
Peace saves lives. And this is the wish of our Cambodian people as appreciation for the president. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Okay, so Trump's saving lives. And again, I'm trying to give you a narrative that is not the narrative that we're being given in Canada of Trump being this awful, evil person. So here's Bannon talking about Trump 2028. It's 3 minutes. I didn't think it was 3 minutes, although I listened to it at 2 times fast. So Bannon War Room says, Bannon on Trump's return in a third term. He's going to get a third term. President Trump will be the president in 28. People should just get accommodated to that. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We need to finish what we started. I'm just going to show you the last part. I'm going to show you the last minute here. He says, she says, how do you think the Congress, how do you think the Constitution is going to allow for that? And fundamentally, the Constitution doesn't have term limits. That was the 22nd Amendment that was added later after FDR had 3 terms during the Second World War. Okay, so FDR wouldn't leave after his second term, and he had a third term, and then they said, you've got to go. And then I think it was Truman who took over after FDR. But that's a story in and of itself as well. FDR's vice president going into his second term and third term, the two back-to-back term, or the back-to-back term that ended his term. Truman was replaced. It was supposed to be somebody called, I think it was Wallace, but Wallace was kind of a socialist. Anyway, it's a big story. It's a very interesting story. Oliver Stone has the whole story on his American history. And that's the first and second episode of that documentary series. It's quite good. It's very, very fun if you're interested in that kind of thing. I watch it for fun. It's ridiculous. But fundamentally, what I want you to pay attention to in this last minute here is he says, we're going to define the terms. We're going to make sure that these things are properly, I can't remember the word he uses, but it's a very important word, meaning we're going to take these terms that we've previously understood and redefine them. And it's all about narrative control. And then I've got a little bit about narrative control after this. Here we go.
Actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all. Trump
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I guess that's why
on his
seems to me
some
kind of tension
First
there.
off, the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people. Okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish this job.
I didn't show you the right part. Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the second minute here, at the end of the first minute. I think that they're talking about it here. Apologies, I thought it was in the last minute.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me in the last few minutes. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through Zanny and define all those terms.
But even
define all those terms. I don't know what Zanny is, but we'll go through that thing and define the terms. And defining the terms in and of itself is setting the rules. If you can define the terms, you set the rules. So what this means actually is this, right? Like if you're an anti-vaxxer, this is what that means. So it's interesting to me, and that is narrative control. And I wanted to put this after there. Camus says, governments don't control populations with force, they control them with a story. Okay, we're being given another story that is competing with the previous story we were run under, and the definition of terms is part and parcel of that new story, okay? As Gavin de Becker explains, we're not going to watch this, the motive behind narratives on everything from Agent Orange to pandemic definitions isn't just greed, it's about maintaining credibility and control. He details the playbook, change definitions, debunk the debunkers years later, and ensure the public believes the official story. From silicone implants to vaccine efficacy, the pattern is the same. The goal is never to admit a mistake, it's to preserve the narrative that holds the entire system together. Because when the story fails, people start looking over the wall. Already started looking over the wall. And what I found is, holy cow, they're lying about everything. Honestly. I wish I was lying, or I wish I didn't believe that they were lying about everything, but holy cow, they're lying about everything. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about trade. It's like sports. Sports is as real as it can get because, like, on the field, it's the game starts 0-0, and you can watch it unless you're talking about basketball. But like most other sports, it's pretty well real, right? And you can see the score tick up, and you can like justify all that. That's why people like talking about sports, because it's, you know, it's real. They scored that goal or they did that thing. Right? You can watch the video footage. Whereas in politics, it's narrative, and it's changing. It's like building on a foundation of sand, and the sand can shift, right? Let's talk about trade. Rupa is talking about the back and forth with Trump, and apparently this is on October 23rd. He was okay with the ad. He says, if I was Canada, I'd run that ad too. So October 23rd, something happens. October 26th or October 21st, Trump's okay with it. By October 23rd, he's not okay with it, and using it as a justification. I don't know. But here's Trump talking about other countries, specifically Canada, running an ad that he would run too.
Have made us a wealthy country. They've given us tremendous defense. They've given us things that we can do for other countries, very positive. But again, really, it's national security, it's national defense, and they are so important. And it's incredible that presidents, for the most part, didn't know how to use them, when to use them. If you go back, you'll see some of the presidents that were the most successful were believers in tariffs. And I even see foreign countries now that we are doing very well with taking ads. Don't go with tariffs. They're taking ads. I saw an ad last night from Canada. If I was Canada, I'd take that same ad also. But
there you go. So on the 21st, okay with it. On the 26th, not okay with it. And then here, Trump is being told by a Fox News reporter, or maybe just a Scrum reporter, I don't know if it was with Fox News, who was telling him that Canada's going to keep running the ad over the weekend. And he's like, what? Here we go.
well, you know, it's a crooked ad. I heard he's airing it. Canada, that's why I pulled everything. With Canada, they did a crooked ad. They knew it was Ronald Reagan loved tariffs. What they did is really dishonest. And I heard they were pulling the ad. I didn't know they were putting it on a little bit more. They could have pulled it tonight. They're going to pull it Monday. Well, that's dirty playing. But I can play dirtier than they can, you know? Well, you know,
I can play dirtier than they can. Yikes. That's not so good. That's not so good. You don't want that, right? You don't want that. Here's Keith, and he says, this is Wab Canoe. And so I don't know the timeline of if, you know, Wab Canoe could have possibly seen what Trump just said. But here's Wab Canoe say, good job, Dougie.
My fellow Manitobans, Ontario's TV ads present Ronald Reagan's views on tariffs accurately and powerfully. President Trump's damaging tariffs go completely against Mr. Reagan's legacy. And it's clear that these ads are working. If you throw a rock at a lake and you don't hear a splash, you've probably missed. So to my good friend Doug Ford, keep the ads on TV. They're effective, and this country is behind you.
Wow. What is with the Fakewood background and the Fakewood TV in the Fakewood background thing? Is this like AI Inception or something like that? Why are we watching on an 80s style television? Why? Like, what is the purpose of this? Is this nostalgia? Like you're in your parents' basement or something like this? I have no idea. It's wild though. It's very, very interesting. Keith is responding to this. He says, this is an unwise approach. The United States is the largest driver of jobs and wealth creation in Canada. Attacking the United States president hurts our economy and Canadians. Yep. Sure does. So that's weird. Melissa says, yikes, more tariffs on Canada just announced by President Trump. Wow. Canada was caught red-handed. This is a Truth Social from, I don't have the time, but this was posted yesterday. Canada was caught red-handed putting up a fraudulent advertisement on Ronald Reagan's speech on tariffs. The Reagan Foundation said they created an ad campaign using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address and did not seek or receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in this matter. The sole purpose of this fraud was Canada's hope that the United States Supreme Court will come to their rescue on tariffs that they have used for years to hurt the United States. Now the United States is able to defend itself against high and overbearing Canadian tariffs and those from the rest of the world as well. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs for the purposes of national security and the economy, but Canada said he didn't. Their advertisement was to be taken down immediately, but they let it run last night during the World Series, knowing it was a fraud. Because of their serious misrepresentation of the facts and hostile acts, I'm increasing the tariff on Canada by 10% over and above what they're paying now. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So look at these tariffs that I can use. See how these tariffs that I can use work to negotiate with other countries. See how this tariff has gone up, Canada. You want to continue to F around because you are going to continue to find out. And Trump is going to be around for a while, it seems like. Maybe, right? CTV News says Carney had no advance notice of the U.S. tariff hike, officials say. Huh, shocking. No advance notice? Wow, right? I mean, like, again, I'm not that surprised, but it's not great that the relationship that Donald Trump keeps saying, oh, we've got such a great relationship. Maybe Trump is not telling us the truth. Maybe he's not telling Carney the truth. Maybe Carney thinks that, maybe he keeps playing Carney, and in playing Carney is also playing us. Here is a quick little scrum with the National Economic Advisor, Kevin Hassett. Here we go.
Just very quickly, what it has been so challenging about dealing with Canada in trade negotiations?
I guess the lack of flexibility, and also I would guess that leftover behaviors from like the Trudeau folks that can be very frustrating for people who are negotiating.
Just very quickly.
Leftover behaviors from some Trudeau folks that can be very frustrating, he says. Yeah, so keeping the same government in place hasn't done Canada any favors. Laurie Goldstein says new column, Liberals back on China bandwagon. 6 months after Mark Carney called China Canada's greatest security threat, the Foreign Affairs Minister gushes about a strategic partnership with it, typical in a government where words mean nothing. Yep. So Carney just continues to lie. Every time he opens his mouth, he lies. Bradshaw is responding to this readout of what Carney did in Kuala Lumpur. And again, he's on a trade mission right now to try and replace all that trade we do with the United States. And it's not going to work because logistics matter, right? Like, we can't ship there cheaply. It's not something that's going to be as beneficial to Canada as fixing our trade relationship with the United States would be. But he's focusing on this Kuala Lumpur thing while trade negotiations with the United States are burning down around Canada. And he doesn't seem to care. And isn't that weird? That seems weird because he's not getting anything from Vietnam, right? Like, that's not happening. He's not getting anything from them. So here's the readout. Prime Minister Carney meets with Prime Minister of Vietnam, Pham Minh Sin. And it says, so this is from Kuala Lumpur. I guess they met in Malaysia, and they're discussing trade between Vietnam and Canada. And it says, today the Prime Minister Carney met with the Prime Minister of Vietnam on the margins of the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Kuala Lumpur. Prime Minister Carney underscored opportunities for growth in the robust trading relationship between Canada and Vietnam. Vietnam is Canada's largest trading partner in the region, with over $15 billion in bilateral trade between the two nations. The Prime Minister focused on increasing collaboration in trade, including in energy, aerospace, security, and critical minerals. What are we going to do? Export like wind turbines? Solar panels? Like what? Solar panels that we buy from China? Ha, right? Like, they're closer. They'd be made in Vietnam. Like, come on. Maybe not made in Vietnam. Prime Minister highlighted Canada's new mission to double its non-U.S. exports in the next decade. To that end, the leaders discussed the potential for Canada to pursue new commercial opportunities with Vietnam, including by accelerating a Canadian ASEAN free trade agreement. Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Sin will remain in close contact. So, close contact. Thanks for taking a shot, but I'm busy Friday washing my hair. And Saturday too, also washing my hair. So, right, we're busy, and we'll get back to you. You don't call us, we'll call you, right? That's always what you want to hear, right? Candace Malcolm says 11 international trips later, and Carney has 0 results for Canadians, right? Just like the Vietnam Kuala Lumpur failure, right? Womp womp. And Alex is responding to Sam Cooper, and Sam Cooper says the detention of Christians in China is beyond despicable and comes on top of the genocide against Muslim Uyghurs and campaigns in Canada against Taiwan Falun Gong, Tibet, inter alia. Any Canadian leader calling Beijing a partner in anything will be judged laterally. And Alex says, not only won't Mark Carney call them out, we will sign a deal with China. Just watch. I hope that's not right, but oof, could be. Dusty Rose says it's absurd to think that you could make a meaningful difference in Canada's export destinations in our lifetime. The United States has by far the simplest logistics, the most buyers, and the highest net return. That's why the market's developed that way. It will take 50 years of very expensive effort to even make a tiny fraction of difference. This is all just political theater, so Canadians don't realize how bad the situation is. We should realize how bad the situation is because Mark Carney is, as Prime Minister, more worried about trade in Asia than he is about 10% increase in tariffs on Canada from the United States that happened because of Doug Ford's idiocy. Mark Carney cares so much, he's out of the country. Does he even know? Who knows, right? And is he leading the country? Nope, not right now. So it's absolutely wild. It is political theater, but I'm taking the opposite. I don't look at this and think, well, at least Mark Carney's out there trying to do something about this. He's not doing anything about this. He's letting the fire burn. He's seen a fire at his own house. Some Diwali fireworks have lit his own house on fire, and he's instead driving at speed to the Muskokas to visit with Doug Ford instead of going to deal with the fire at his house. He's not even calling the fire department. He doesn't care, right? And the fire is 10% increased tariffs on Canada from Donald Trump. And Carney's hanging out in Vietnam or Kuala Lumpur talking with the Vietnamese prime minister. Absolute fail. This is dereliction of duty. You're not doing your job, sir, right? And it's unbelievable, but here we are, right? Pat Kay says, on April 1st, 1975, Canada adopted the metric system. One of the stated reasons was to diversify trade away from the United States and to increase trade with Europe and with the Pacific Rim. We've already been at this for 50 years. The economics just don't make sense. You know what economics would make sense? Pipelines to fill up tankers to take, or a pipeline directly across all the way into Europe or whatever you want to do. Selling energy would work, but we're not allowed to sell energy unless it's a wind turbine or a solar panel that we buy from China, right? So like Carney is not doing his job, and that's his job, to not meet the needs of Canada, but instead to meet the needs of the globalists. And meeting the needs of the globalists means destroying the trade relationship between Canada and the United States. But I feel like Trump's ready for that. And I've seen him turn the tables on so many people, so many people who thought they had him over a barrel, right? And like, he's the president now. They wanted him in jail, and he's not in jail. He's the president. And so again, it could be that Canadian citizens become American citizens. And I think that's a net loss. But if we can't unseat this entity that has taken over our government, that is not doing what it should be doing on behalf of Canadians, then that's a dereliction of our duty. And if somebody else comes in and takes it over, well, we had the opportunity. We have the opportunity, and we're not doing anything with it. And so maybe that's because the media is rigged, and so what? Maybe that's because the elections are rigged, and so what? Right? Trump seems to have been able to get around a rigged election, right? And so, sure, there's a lot of challenges, but sitting there and saying, oh, well, we can't do anything about it, that's going to ensure that we don't actually do anything about it, unfortunately. So the economics don't make sense, but there are situations where we could be exporting product that would be very valuable and would bring in a lot of money, and we don't. And we allow our politicians to get away with this. For 30, 40 years now we have. So it's crazy, right? The 80s, have we been building pipelines? Did we build a lot of pipelines in the 80s? The fight about pipelines has been as long as I can remember. Anyway, we've got to say goodbye to the stream. There's tons more show. If you want the rest of the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. We'll catch you tomorrow. And for everybody else, I almost stopped the recording. Oh my gosh, that was ridiculous. For everybody else, okay, I'm going to stop the stream. And I'll stop the other stream and do that. Good. And then we will carry on right now. Dan is responding to Sam Cooper, talking about the Christians and talking about any leader that's bringing us closer to China will be judged. And Dean says, it makes absolutely no sense to partner with China, who we know have interfered in our elections, have interfered in our